Ruang Tanggap Rasa.
Selamat datang di Ruang Tanggap Rasa, Season 2. Podcast ini dipersembahkan Komisi Nasional Hak Asasi Manusia.
Halo happy humans, apa kabar kamu semua? Semoga dimanapun kamu berada, kapanpun kamu mendengarkan ini, selalu dalam keadaan baik dan sehat. Podcast kali ini kita akan mengangkat tema tentang migrant worker atau pekerja migran di Thailand. Podcast kali ini kita akan mendatangkan narasumber dari Thailand langsung, yaitu Niaswane Kortordilo atau yang biasa disebut Fanny.
Wah, menarik banget nih pastinya. Dan ini pertama kali ya kita mengundang narasumber dari luar dan kita akan berbicara tentang migrant worker. Humans tahu nggak migrant worker itu apa? Bukan pekerja yang terus migran ya. Jadi migrant worker itu adalah pekerja yang dimana mereka meninggalkan tempat asalnya untuk mencari pekerjaan di luar dan mereka tidak mendapatkan tempat tinggal di sana biasanya karena status visa mereka adalah kerja. Jadi pasti ada masalah karena dari tahun 2017 itu kan meningkat banget tuh data terakhir. Sampai di pandemi mereka ada kendala di kesehatan dan kesejahteraan. Nah, bagaimana serunya kita berdiskusi dengan narasumber kita kali ini yang dari overseas ya. Jadi kita sedikit-sedikit bahasa Inggris dan bagaimana nantinya bahasa Inggris kita mengacaukan acara ini. Pantengin aja terus podcast ini bersama saya dan Friska. Friska, do you want to ask something or let me first to ask her?
Okay, maybe we should know first about Fanny. Okay, Fanny, can you introduce yourself first?
Okay, first of all, thanks for having me here. I'm very excited. Thank you, Dandy and Friska, for having me here today. And I will try to also answer as clear as possible. So from myself, okay. My name is Niaswane Kortordilo, and you can call me Farni because it's shorter name. And I am Thai. I'm based in Bangkok, but I actually I was born in Thailand's deep south, and the Thailand deep south like close to Malaysia, so I'm kind of like bilingual. I speak like Jawi, that's our native language, and also Thai. I'm 24 years old, and I've been working for human rights since I was in university because I was working like part-time at NGO, and now I'm also working for an organization that provides legal assistance to migrant workers in Thailand. Mainly they're from Myanmar, Cambodia, and Laos. Yes.
Oh, that's great. Why do you concern with to deal with this issue? I mean, migrant workers, many issues, right? And you choose this one to your concern.
For my concern about the migrant workers, because I first contact with the migrant workers when I was in university. I was working part-time at the NGO, the internet NGO that also helping the fishermen from Cambodia, and that's the first time that I really contact with the migrant workers, and then I found out their conditions, their work condition, and also life condition here. It's very insecure and vulnerable because most of the time they are treated badly by the employers, and most of the employers are Thais. So I feel like they should have better social protection and welfare while working in Thailand. Yes.
Okay. And actually, I'm kind of surprised when I know that you're 24. It's so young, and you are focusing about migrant worker. It's so unusual because young people usually do not focusing on the issue like migrant worker. So I'd like to know that why you inspired to be an activist and especially focusing about this issue. Is there any biggest issue in Thai or something that makes you interesting about this issue?
So when I say I'm pretty young activist, actually I want to add something. Last 2 weeks, when I was having a meeting in Malaysia, I found a young Indonesian girl. She's 23 and she also doing the same work as me, also migrant workers. And that's also surprised me that she's also young. It's not just only me, but there's also an Indonesian girl who are 23 also working at the same topic as me. So going back to myself, actually, I myself experienced or witnessed with the inequality when I was like young, and I feel like that most of people who are vulnerable, who are poor, lots of them like experience this maltreatment and the inequality, the poverty, the lack of information and education, and I feel like I have the experience of being a vulnerable person, and when it turns out to be like another person who also vulnerable, then I have the feeling, I can share the feeling that how it feels like to be in vulnerable, in weak situations, in the situation, in the condition that you don't feel insecure, you don't feel protected. And that's because of my personal experience when I was young, reflects me back. And that's the reason why I keep working on improving and helping others people, because I kind of like have the mutual feelings, like I feel it, I feel them, and I know how to feel how bad it is to be in that situation.
Yes, I think it's great. I really want to know how do you deal with this issue? I mean, in practicable, or you have a story when you take solve the problem in your state. Can you give your experience
about my work, right?
Yes, about your work and your work.
Yeah. Okay. So when I started working, after my graduation last year, and I started working, and it was actually already in the COVID pandemic. So I experienced lots of pressure, like tension during the pandemic, and I experienced to be in the moment when the migrant workers who were already vulnerable, even more vulnerable during the COVID, because of they are unemployed, the access of social protection is very challenging. So there are lots of challenges for the migrant workers in Thailand to seek their rights and social protection. And I feel like as a person, a Thai person who think that I can do something to help them. So I did it. So I start with looking for a job, for a work that can give meaningful to people, to the migrant workers. So when I started working with this organization that I'm working now with the HRDF, I started with just providing food kits during the COVID because they didn't have food, the migrant workers. So I started providing emergency kits, and then later with the legal assistance, because the main jobs for my organization is to provide legal assistance.
Okay. Oh, you said legal assistance. So they get us legal problems in your state?
Yes, actually, the migrant workers they can pursue legal assistance in Thailand, but there are lots of barriers like language, because the forms, the complaint mechanisms are available in Thai language, and the migrant workers don't use the Thai, so that's a reason why they cannot. I mean, the migrant workers cannot just go and then file the suit or seek the complaints. They need the NGOs. They need us to help them out with that.
I would like to know about this pandemic is going down for right now. So
yes.
How the condition in there? What they are feeling right now for this pandemic? Are the same like 2 years ago, 1 year ago during pandemic, or it's different for now?
Yeah, it's really different because during the pandemic, they lost their jobs, and because most of the factories and the camps were closed, and then they could not get any work. So now the migrant workers they have jobs, and they can go back to work. So the needs of the food kit also they don't need that anymore because they have jobs, and that's the thing that it's a good news for us and also for them. So that's the difference. So it's getting better about the job security for the migrant workers in Thailand.
I want to know about the government role about this migrant worker issue, because I heard from you that before you always said that migrant issue there is government doesn't have a big role for resolving this issue, right? That you as an organization give food kit and everything you said before. So where's the government? Is there any regulation about this?
So actually during the pandemic, the government they tried to help the migrant workers who are in construction camps, but they could not. Actually, there were challenges because the government also tried to provide like food, but unfortunately, foods were spoiled when it arrived to the migrant workers, and the government also imposed like the migrant workers can get like 50% of their daily wage during the camp closure, but that the employer is the person who received the money, and it turns out to be the Thai employer deduct the money. So there are lots of problems, and we could see the effort of the Thai government, but there are still challenges that the NGOs observe, like the vaccines as well, that the migrant workers receive like kind of like the last person. So Thais came first because the government kind of like prioritized for the Thais, but it turns out to be there are lots of Myanmar workers caught COVID, and they because they could not get vaccines at that time. So there are lots of the death of the migrants at that time, and I think the misunderstanding of the government is that actually the social protection, like I think the government should do that job. It's not the NGO's job, like for providing food kits. It should not be us, but there's still a lack of that. I think because maybe the government think that the NGO can help somehow, but we feel like this is actually should be the government do this job. And the food kit is not just one time and then that's all, but they need more and more. So we feel like the closure of the factory and the camps imposed by the government didn't give the good benefits for the employees or the migrant workers. They didn't have a plans like what should be the next, and the response plans that the government didn't provide that. And it was like kind of like messed up at that time during the COVID. So the NGO also like there are lots of patients, lots of COVID-19 patients, and the NGOs also try to help with the governments as well, because I think there's the lack of resource of the governments as well that cannot distribute to everybody, every migrant workers in Thailand.
How about before COVID? Is it more better or it's just the same?
We think that the COVID really reflects the government work. Like now we see that the existing mechanisms, the existing foreign workers management in Thailand, it's not effective. And maybe it wasn't effective in the past, but because of the COVID pandemic, that reflects that we can see clearer that when it comes to response in emergency, then the government failed it. So we think that the COVID pandemic is the repercussion, is the consequences of the government work. And we can see that it's not really effective. And the pandemic just shows to us that the government should change something, should change the mechanism and the welfare and the services that to cover everybody, not just only Thais.
Okay. Now, I'd like to know about your organization. Is there any regular program for this migrant worker, like for their advocation maybe, or like I said before, training for increasing their skills or something?
So as for my organization, the Human Rights and Development Foundation, I call it the HRDF, we work on providing legal assistance. So most of our officers, our staff are legal officers, and that's our main job. But we also provide trainings to migrant communities, migrant groups. Like in the north, actually we have 5 offices in Thailand. We have in the north, Chiang Mai, and in the east and west and the south as well, and the headquarters in Bangkok. So we try to cover the migrant workers in each part of Thailand. And in the north, we provide training, legal trainings to migrant leaders. But that's also, they can help us to support, when they receive the cases in their own communities, then they know how to deal with it, how to help their own people. So we do that every year. We have like our law students, which are migrant workers. Yeah, and also what we do regularly is that we conduct field trips, we conduct outreach, so we can learn like what's the problems, the issues, the challenges in the ground. And that's how we can also collect or assess to legal cases. And that's what we do normally. And the giving, providing food kits is like extra jobs during the COVID pandemic. Yeah.
It's because pandemic, so you give food kits, medical kits, and etc. Is it?
Yeah,
okay.
That's extra. But I'm not a lawyer. So when I came here, I learned a lot about laws, and that's kind of like, it's not just the legal. The legal persons can come and work here. I graduated humanities and social science. I graduated like in English major, but I'm doing the law stuff. I'm helping managing cases, and that's because the passion of wanting, to help people. It's more than what I have, and that's I don't undermine myself like I cannot do this. Yes, I'm not a lawyer, so that's the reason why it's very challenging. But but if you, I mean, as a young person, we feel like we can learn, even though we're not a lawyer, we can learn to do this, and we can inspire others that even though you're not a lawyer, you can still helping others with the legal assistance. You can empower the migrant workers, the vulnerable people to assess their rights, even though you're not a lawyer. So everybody can do this.
Yes, of course, I agree with that. Everybody can do it without know more about law first. Just do it, and everything is going to be all right in the future. Anyway, I would like to know about your hope. What
My
is your hope?
Okay.
For this issue?
Yeah. During the COVID pandemic, I collected the challenges in assessing to relief programs by the government, because I learned that there are quite a few of programs, the relief programs that helping people and during the COVID pandemic, but those programs the migrant workers cannot access, even though they are also just contributing into social security. So when I collected those challenges, and I created kind of like a study report and recommendations, and then the NGO staff, I mean, from other organizations or partners who have lots of experience in this kind of like, we did that before. So for them, like they have been doing it for a long time and see like no changes. But for me, as a young person, that I feel like I want to know what were missing in the past, like why these policies or these recommendations don't work in Thailand. So for me, I think the new hope that I want to tackle all those challenges and then create it, like I want to inspire people. I want to empower young people that although in the past our friends could not do it, they failed it, but we want to learn why they failed it, and we want to make it even better, create a new strategies. And I think that's how I want it to, I want to like lead the hope in the other young people, because I believe that it can be changed when we are together and we work together. That I think the migrant workers have a better social protection and welfare, and they are empowered to claim their rights. And that's the thing I hope and I want to see in the future. And I want like the people who work on human rights to feel empowered and to have hopes for the new changes.
Okay, so is that also your message for your people around the world?
Yeah.
Yes, okay, so yeah. How about you, Friska? Do you have any question?
Maybe one last question. Maybe other questions. I want you to share about some, maybe you have a memorable cases about migrant worker that are very unique, maybe that you're still reminded.
So one unique case is, I have a case that our case like got injured, hurt during the work accidents, and so we tried to help this case to get, we called it the Workmen Compensation Fund, but there are challenges about the case status, the immigration status, and that's like made the case even more vulnerable to access to those funds. But we know as a legal organization, we know that he can access to that fund, and that's the immigration status should not be a problem. And that's because there's no laws that say that they cannot receive. So we try to assure our case that he can get this fund, and we can also like to investigate the employer who didn't comply with the safety. But that's we kind of like urge the government to do that, because it's government job to investigate the employer. And at the end, this case went to the mediation process because he has the challenge with the immigration status. And it turned out to be that when it comes to mediation process, which is we don't really want to support the mediation process, because as for our organization, we think that the mediation process always end up with a low money. So we want to go more, because we think that our cases can receive more money than that. But as a person who already got injured and in an insecure status, insecure condition, then they just want to get anything they want to get. So during the mediation process, although we assure them that you can go for this if you still want to fight for your rights, you can get more money. But it shows that when you are in that vulnerable, in the weak situation, then you just want to get anything. So he accepted to get that amount of money, but that's also fine. But just think about other people who are injured, then they did not know. They don't know that they can get this kind of fund unless they have people to inform them. And that should be the government's job to inform their rights.
Wow. Okay. It's so...
Pretty heavy, huh? Pretty heavy topic.
I would like to say thank you so much for you. And Friska, do you want to add something or?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for having me today. It's very, it's the first time that I really shared about my work and the challenges of the migrant workers to like other people. This very insightful interview. And yeah, thank you again. And I hope to talk to you more.
Thank you.
Thank you, Farni.
Ya, itu tadi Happy Humans, interview kita bersama Farni, seorang aktivis yang concern di bidang migrant worker. Dan ya, kita sebagai anak muda harus berkontribusi juga, karena tidak semua pekerja migran itu tahu masalah mereka, tahu hukumnya seperti apa dan kendalanya bagaimana. Dan itu tadi sudah diceritakan oleh Farni, betul nggak Friska? Dan kami masih menunggu feedback dari teman-teman Happy Human semuanya. Langsung aja kirim ke email kami di tanggaprasa@komnasam.go.id. Dan juga apa, Fris?
Dan juga jangan lupa untuk mengisi link monitoring dan evaluasi podcast Tanggap Rasa ya Happy Humans. Linknya nanti akan kita lampirkan di website Tanggap Rasa. Happy Humans, jangan lupa untuk follow juga sosial media kita di Instagram @komnas.ham, Twitter @komnasham, Facebook Komnasham, YouTube Komnasham Channel, dan live chat di website tanggaprasa.id setiap hari kerja, setiap jam 1-3 sore waktu Indonesia Barat.
Sampai jumpa ke depan pukul 16.00 waktu Indonesia Barat di episode Tanggap Rasa berikutnya. Bye-bye.